Hello and welcome to Rolling with Reviews. I'm Will, and with me as always this person says hives can be a good thing.
Sarah.
And today we're doing a review of Apiary. Now if you want to see our two-player perspective and accessibility, check out our other video on this called Rolling with Two Apiary. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. In Apiary, each player controls one of 20 unique factions. Your faction starts the game with a hive, a few resources, and worker bees. In this worker placement game, you will explore planets, gather resources, develop technologies, and create carvings. However, your workers can take only a few actions before they must hibernate. Whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins. All right, Will, so why did we get this?
So we came at this from two different directions.
Yes, I first heard about this game, and I was really excited because I saw it was from a new woman game designer. That's always great to support. I just wasn't really sure about the theme.
Yeah, you could tell how excited she was because she didn't tell me.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
I found out about it myself and asked her, I was like, hey, have you heard about this? And she's like, yeah, but I wasn't sure. So we watched the video, liked what we saw, and picked it up.
Yep. Sometimes this is how it happens.
Yes, that's the magic.
The magic of sometimes we don't communicate. I was still thinking about it. I would have told you, but it came out and I just needed a couple of days to think about it. That's all. Okay. What do we like about the game? The positive player interaction, all the mechanisms of the worker placement, the shared play space, I mean, the worker bumping, all of it.
Yeah, this whole thing is put together very, very slick. Where you put out a number, and if it's one of the spots that have multiple dice, you push one over. If one falls off, then it goes back to the other player, and then they have a choice to, do I keep it as a number and just hold off until I'm ready to call back my workers? Or do I bump it up one, which means it's closer to hibernation, but it's ready to go for my next turn at a higher value.
Right.
Then I look at the numbers, add them together, and get a new power ability. And the higher the number, the better the ability. So you're helping each other by, putting high numbers out there.
Yep. Which makes sense because you're bees in space, but bees work together and
in space
to do bee things. But the whole point is the positive player interaction is reinforced in the gameplay because kind of the theme. So I'm just glad it's there, because I think for me, I would have been disappointed if it was a bee game where there was no positive player interaction because of, the whole hive mind concept comes from bees, right? Because they work together to do things. So I just really appreciate that. Plus, we just really do like positive player interaction in games because it generally feels better and moves the game forward.
Yeah, and there's other ways that you can actually help shape the main board. For example, there are dances that you can teach everybody. And now when it comes to the conversion spot, that new dance becomes a new option for every player to do. But it requires a very powerful bee in order to teach the dance.
Right.
Additionally, your exploration of the various planets is a shared single ship that goes around. As you discover a planet, you will determine what that planet produces for everyone who visits it for the rest of the game. And some planets can actually hold multiple. So as other players go there moving the big ship, they contribute to what this planet is producing and thus show a representation of their agency on a shared board.
Yep. Exactly. And one of the other things is just the variable player powers. The fact that there are 20 unique factions. There's 5 different hive mats. You put those together and how the tiles come out randomly because there's 4 different types of tiles. So even if in one game you're like, oh man, that one tile was really awesome. Well, either this new game, it's not going to help you as much, or it might never come up. So you can't rely on the same strategy every single time. You're always shifting to try new things.
Yeah, and those player powers are interesting because sometimes they're actually interactive.
Yes.
So for example, I played with one where if Sarah bumped me off the board, we both got queen's favor.
Right, which was really interesting, but not necessarily work that well in a two-player game.
Well, from the outset, we're like, I'm not sure this is great for a two-player game.
Right.
I built my strategy to make it so that I could gain even more queen's favor, and therefore I made it a strength rather than
a weakness. A wash, actually.
A wash that wouldn't benefit me at all.
Right.
It informed how I then played the game.
That's true.
Which was interesting.
Yeah, that definitely shifted how he played the game, because if that was going to work for him, he needed to gain more than me, which he did. So yes, I was gaining queen's favor, but the points I got from that was piddly compared. I think you got to the end of that track.
Yes, I did.
So it worked for him.
Yes.
The seed cards, also a multi-use. Love the concept of multi-use cards, because then you never get a bad card, because in the very end, if you can't use it for its one-time discard ability and you don't want to plant it for its endgame ability, you can discard it for one basic random resource. So it's always good.
Yeah. You can get a water,
yes,
a pollen, or what I call a French fry. It's called fiber.
Fiber. Took me a moment to remember what it was.
Looks like a French fry. A crinkle cut French fry.
You wouldn't say that if you knew or see that it was green.
I might, depending. Some fries are weird.
That's true. I thought it was look more like a worm, but anywho.
Okay.
The workers, you touched on this, but the evolving worker, the fact that they start off like one or two depending on your starting setup, and each time they come back, they roll up. And once you get to 4, then each of the areas has this super big power that it can use a 4/4.
Even the planets.
Even the planets. But then once the 4 comes back, you lose that die. You get a token to put into the hibernation comb. And then you have to... How did you gain dice again? I feel like...
There is a spot that you just go to and you can
get new
workers.
dice.
Now, if you're completely out of workers... one free action at the beginning of your turn is getting a 1 value worker.
Right. So you're never completely out of the game, which is great, because we've definitely played games where that kind of aspect wasn't thought about. Like they just kind of made the assumption, oh, you're never going to use all your workers and never have anybody.
I'll show you.
Yeah. So it's really great that they have that, so you're never out of the game because you may just plan something wrong, or you didn't think something through, or whatever. You get something back. Mm-hmm. So... But it's just, the other aspect of that is when you recall workers, you activate your farms, and those farms give you resources and other benefits. So it's a really interesting balance between making sure you have enough farms before you recall, like at the very beginning of the game. One of the first things I like to do is to get farms so that when I recall my workers, they activate those farms.
Yeah, but an interesting thing is in the late part of the game, you might have more farms than you have bees.
Yeah.
So now it's which farm is going to be you most helpful in the production.
Right. Because later in the game, you actually might have gotten a farm that gives you victory points or queen's favor or something, and that might be better than getting resources. You never know. Good thing is the shape pieces are accessible, so we do have a video going over the accessibility in the 2-player experience. We recommend watching it. It's called Rolling with 2. So it's really good that the resources are uniquely shaped and the dice can be felt. Will had a really interesting way of looking at it. I had trouble seeing some of them, so check out that video to see all our positives and negatives about the accessibility. Mm-hmm. Moving on to what we don't like about the game, and this is probably going to be slightly controversial.
Yes. So I think this is the smartest theme that's totally dumb. And the reason why is it's smart because it's a fantastic marketing tool. You can just say, oh, it's the Space Bee game. And you're like, oh, there's only really one I know. That's Apiary, right? Yep, that's the one I'm talking about. So it's really easy to market. It'll stand out in the market as being unique. And it's a really easy thing to pitch and sell. However, it doesn't inform the players. And like one thing that might make it a little bit tough in the selling department is like, well, what do you mean space bees? That sounds weird. That's just to remember, and then they explain the mechanisms. Like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Focus on the mechanisms.
Yeah, focus on the mechanism. But learning the game, we had problems because they would bring up apiary knowledge and terms that made us pause and like, what?
We have no understanding or knowledge of how to keep bees. So none of these words meant anything to us.
Yeah. And how that ended up translating into our gameplay is when we first played, if we didn't lock in all the rules, you didn't know what to do in order to make points.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, I'm a space bee. How does that make me points?
Yeah. Because if you don't understand what bees do other than make honey, you really don't know how to traverse the game. And that was definitely a challenge.
Yes. Essentially, you make a bigger hive. You put more of your guys in the hibernation comb. You make carvings that are variable points. You plant seeds that'll get you more points. You get higher on the queen's favor. So there is also a whole lot of ways to earn points. But because you don't have the theme to help you inform you on that, you're probably just at a loss.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to who this is for.
Intermediate gamers on up.
Yeah, there's definitely some complexity to the game. This is not going to be an introductory game at all. Definitely not family weight. And again, because it doesn't really guide the players too well on what you need to do, it's going to take a couple of games to get it. And unless you're intermediate or hardcore, you're probably not going to give it that much time.
Yeah.
You're just, if you don't, I mean, there's gamers who's like, I played it once, I didn't get it, I'm not trying it again. I mean, we've had that experience with games too.
Yeah.
But I think this is just going to do better for that audience. So, our rating.
So, for our ratings, we each have 1d6 worth of ratings to give. 1 is low, 6 is high. We give a number, a reason why, add them together, and see what it rolled for us. Sarah, what did Apiary roll for you?
Sorry to say it rolled a 3. So there's a lot of interesting concepts that I really like. I mean, like I said, the positive player interaction aspects are really interesting. I just didn't really feel them very well in a 2-player game, which is the only way that we've played it so far. I also got completely overwhelmed by the game, and we've only played it a couple of times. I just felt like there were a lot of times too many choices. Once I started making a choice and I got to the end of that route, I didn't know what to do next. So there's a lot of starting and stopping and stuttering, and I just didn't fully get things. Like, I understood the certain like parts of it, but not the whole. And as Will's going to say in a moment, he had a completely different experience. So for me, so far with what we've experienced on it, I'm only so-so on the game.
For me, I gave it a 5. The only thing that gave me any pause is the theme. It's just a weird theme. Space bees, I don't know what to do with it. I still don't know what to do with that. However, mechanically, this thing is built very, very smart. Fortunately, I am the type of person that can actually take all these disparate mechanisms, keep them all in my head, and even my first game, I have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. And this game all comes down to a very, very smart timing game. Making sure the right number goes out at the right time, because you need to get it back at a higher value at this time to do this thing. And working all those different elements, and there's a lot to do as well. So I feel I have a lot of player agency. I have a lot of player interaction, and I have a lot of directions in which I can go. Like, for example, I think Sarah heard a podcast and was like, oh, well, you definitely need the carving. And I was like, no, you don't. My very first game, I didn't do a single carving.
No, you didn't.
I blew you out of the water. You did carvings and didn't even come close to me because I saw where all the other points were.
Right.
And was able to capitalize on playing my own style of game in my own way. And then the next game I played, I tried carvings. Won that game too. Had a great time. But I also played differently than my first game, and I felt it in all the mechanics. So the mechanics have a lot of depth, had a lot of interesting things to do. It's just that theme doesn't inform me as to this is good, but I don't really need it. So there you go. 8 out of 12, respectable score, but hit or miss.
Yes, I think that's the key thing to take away from this. I think there's going to be people like Will who are going to really enjoy it, and I think there's going to be people like me who are like, that was good, but I can't say I'm like clamoring to play it again. I haven't actually heard anybody so far that I've talked to that said they absolutely don't like the game.
No, because there's so much smart decisions.
There's a lot of... I don't really care a great deal for the game, but I truly respect the game. I really do. The game design decisions that went into it, I can see a lot of amazing things. Like I said, I love the positive player interaction. I just don't get it. And I think it's a limitation of me. It's just, it's overwhelming. I don't have the guidance that I need to do well in the game. And that comes down to different styles of game design, really.
Yeah.
And different games will have different guidance or lack thereof. So, and that works well or not well for different people.
All right. So, my question to you
yeah.
is if there's one skill that a player needs to come at this game with to really rock it, what skill do you think that is?
I don't know. You won. What skill would that be?
Timing.
Yeah. Timing.
You have to be...
And I'm terrible at timing.
Yeah. No, the funny thing is, we did a different game. We played a different game called Crown of Amara.
Yes.
That's also a big timing game. But what they did is they pared it all down to make it very bite-sized chunks. This game is a much more open.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you got the disconnect and lost yourself. You're like, I can't time it out that far ahead.
Yeah.
Where I was playing with my French fries and my Rolos.
You need to know the time. Yeah. Oh, I'm hungry.
Yeah. Because the shapes look like French fries and Rolos.
Yes, Rolos.
Awesome. All right. That's it for us. And we've been Rolling with Reviews. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Discord, we have a channel on Tabletop Express. Check the show notes for the invite link.
If you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.